Thank you, Humera. So I'd like you to think about the last thing that you made. What was it? Maybe a knitted hat, or a cool shirt, a machined part, or maybe a sandwich. When we think about making, a lot of times we think about 3D printers and robots and Arduinos, and that can really put people off, because if you don't know about those things, then maybe you feel like you're not qualified to be a maker. But people have been making stuff for as long as we've been human. And there are a lot of crafts like knitting and sewing that are really useful in their own right and also can make really cool things when they're combined with tech. And a great example of this comes from the Society of Women Engineers Club at my school. They were doing this engineering design project for a little boy who was going to use a car to get more mobility. And it was pretty standard, and then they started sewing. And they made a really cool switch using conductive fabric and foam that allowed the boy to squeeze it and make the car go. And so through sewing, they engineered, and they came up with a really innovative solution. This is one example of how combining craft with tech can really help with a solution. But I don't want you to think that this example means that making is just for engineers. Because a lot of what I've learned from making is actually because of librarians at my school. And making can be done by anyone of any major. Why do we want to invest in making? Because making allows us to adopt a growth mindset. A growth mindset can help us learn from failure. Because when we have a fixed mindset, failure is a roadblock. But when we have a growth mindset, we can reflect on our failure and we can learn from it. And that's important because failure happens a lot in making. And when you know how to reflect on it, then that means that you can understand how to move forward. And developing that mindset can help you in a lot of areas of life. It's also important to note that this is the same as the engineering design process and the design thinking process. So that ideate, prototype, test cycle is the same process of learning from your failures and improving for the future. And you can get that through makerspaces. Makerspaces also provide a place where you can learn a mindset. And that's so much more important than what you make, is the process of learning new skills and the process of learning new perspectives. And learning new perspectives comes from working with other people. So when makerspaces are for people all across your campus, for people of different majors and different backgrounds, that is when you get really powerful teams and really powerful ideas. So it's important that your makerspaces are universal. Making is more than just what you make. Really, it's a mindset. And that is what I want you to take away from this talk. It doesn't matter what your major is, whether you're crafty, whether you're a programmer. All of these things share something in common, which is that when you learn those skills and you screw up and you learn from it, that mindset is what you come away with. And so when you make a makerspace, that's really what you're creating, is a space where people can learn from their mistakes in a risk-free environment. So I want you to think about that thing that you made that I mentioned at the beginning. Did you learn something from that process? Were there challenges as you learned those skills? That is what makes you a maker, not being crafty, not knowing how to 3D print. So if you have that mindset, that makes you a maker. So I'd like you to raise your hand if you consider yourself a maker. And I'd like you to think about what that realization means to you and what that realization could mean to other students on your campus. So I'll leave you with this. How can we empower ourselves and others to learn through making?